Hey everyone, it's Emma. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. Today's story is a little bit embarrassing, a little bit funny, and honestly, it taught me a valuable lesson. It's all about how I completely blanked on someone's birthday and felt absolutely terrible about it. Can you relate? I'm sure you can. You know those moments when you're going about your day, everything's sunshine and rainbows, and then bam, something hits you like a ton of bricks? Well, that's exactly what happened. It was my dear friend Liam's birthday, and it totally slipped my mind. I felt so awful, like a truly terrible friend. The worst part is, he's usually the one reminding me of everyone else's birthdays. But you know what? It all turned out surprisingly well, and it actually ended up being a pretty heartwarming experience. And you will not believe what happened next. It really showed me the importance of forgiveness and understanding in friendships. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. And don't forget, new videos are released daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you get stuck in a rut? Like, a hair rut? I swear, for the longest time, my hair routine was basically wash, condition, air dry. Maybe a ponytail if I was feeling ambitious. Exciting, right? Not exactly. Anyway, I'd been feeling this urge, you know? Like the little whisper saying, there's more to life than ponytails. Dramatic, I know. But seriously, I was ready for a change. So, picture this. It's a Saturday, sun streaming through the window. The smell of coffee still lingering in the air. You know, that perfect weekend morning vibe? And I'm scrolling through Instagram, as you do, and I see this ad. This beautiful, intricate, shimmering hair clip. It was like a little piece of art, all swirls and sparkles, like something a woodland fairy would wear. I'm usually not one for impulse buys, but something about this clip. It just called to me. I clicked. I added to cart. I checked out faster than you can say, bad hair day. The anticipation, oh my goodness. The anticipation while waiting for it to arrive. It felt like waiting for Christmas morning as a kid. I checked the tracking information obsessively. I even rearranged my hair accessories drawer to make room for its Royal Highness, the sparkly clip. Sad, I know, but don't judge. We all have our little things. Finally, the day came. The little cardboard box arrived. I tore it open like a ravenous wolf. Okay, maybe not that dramatic, but you get the idea. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was the clip. And it was even more beautiful in person. It shimmered and caught the light, a delicate dance of iridescent blues and greens. I swear I gasped a little. It felt special. Now, here's the thing. My hair isn't exactly cooperative. It's thick, wavy, and has a mind of its own. It's like a wild, untamed beast most days. So, I was a little intimidated. I mean, this clip looked delicate, ethereal. Would my unruly mane even allow such elegance? I decided to try it out that evening. I was going out for dinner with some friends, nothing fancy, but I wanted to, you know, make an effort. I washed my hair, let it air dry, my usual routine. I'm a creature of habit. And then, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath and carefully positioned the clip on the side of my head, gathering a section of my hair. It felt weird, different, like My hair was suddenly aware it was being asked to behave. I looked in the mirror. And it slipped right off. Plop. Onto the bathroom counter. My initial reaction? Deflation. Total and utter deflation. See? I knew it. My hair was too much for this delicate little thing. This was a mistake. I should stick to ponytails. You know that feeling, right? When you try something new and it just flops. But then, something shifted. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was the shimmer of the clip catching my eye again. Maybe it was the stubborn part of me that refuses to be defeated by a hair accessory. But I picked it up again. This time, I tried a different approach. Instead of just clipping it on, I twisted a section of my hair first, creating a sort of anchor for the clip to grip onto. And it held. It actually held. I cautiously added another small section, twisting and clipping, and it held again. I started to get excited. This was working. I spent the next, probably an embarrassingly long amount of time, experimenting. Twisting, clipping, adjusting. I tried different placements, different amounts of hair. I even watched a YouTube tutorial. Don't tell anyone. There I was, a grown woman, getting a PhD in hair clip application. But you know what? It was fun. I felt like I was rediscovering my hair, like I was unlocking some hidden potential. It was like playing dress up all over again, but with my hair as the outfit. And slowly, surely, I started to get the hang of it. Finally, I found a style I liked. The clip nestled securely in my hair, holding the waves back from my face, adding a touch of sparkle and, dare I say, elegance? I looked in the mirror and I smiled. A real, genuine smile. It wasn't just about the clip, you know? It was about the feeling. The feeling of trying something new, of stepping outside my comfort zone, of succeeding. It was a small victory, maybe even a silly one, but it felt good. When I met my friends for dinner, they immediately noticed. Your hair. It looks so pretty. That clip is gorgeous. Those little compliments, they warmed me up inside. It wasn't just about looking good, it was about feeling good. And I did. I felt confident. I felt pretty. And isn't that what we all want at the end of the day? The funny thing is, it wasn't even about the dinner, or the compliments. It was about that moment in my bathroom, fumbling with a sparkly clip, figuring it out, and realizing that sometimes, the smallest things can make the biggest difference. It reminded me that it's okay to try new things, even if they seem intimidating at first. It's okay to make mistakes, to stumble, to even have your hair clip fall off your head a few times. Because in those little moments of trying, of experimenting, of playing, we discover something new about ourselves. And sometimes, that's all the magic we need. And you know what the best part is? Now, I have a whole new arsenal of hair clips. Different shapes, sizes, colors. My hair accessories drawer is overflowing. My husband jokes that I have a clip for every occasion, and you know what? He's not wrong. But it's not just about the clips, it's about the possibilities. It's about the feeling of playing with my hair, of expressing myself, of trying new things. It's about that little spark of joy that comes from finally mastering a new hair clip, and realizing that even the smallest changes can make you feel, well, a little bit magical. So yeah, it all started with one sparkly clip. Who knew something so small could lead to such a big change? It's funny how life works sometimes, isn't it? Settling into an imaginary comfy chair, a warm smile spreading across my face. So, you want to hear a story? All right, grab a cuppa, settle in, because this one's a saga. The saga of the day I cleaned my fridge. It sounds mundane, I know, but trust me, it was an odyssey. A journey into the heart of, well, leftovers. You see, my fridge, it's not just a fridge. It's a microcosm of my life. Organized chaos, a curated collection of aspirations and forgotten dreams, all marinating in a delicate blend of hope and questionable expiration dates. I'm a bit of a food enthusiast, you know? I love trying new recipes, stocking up on fresh produce, imagining all the delicious meals I'll create. The reality, however, often involves a whirlwind of takeout containers and half-eaten bags of salad greens slowly morphing into something else entirely. And this particular day, well, let's just say the fridge had reached peak maturity. It was one of those Sunday afternoons, sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, and also the rather alarming state of my fridge. I'd opened it looking for, I think, some yogurt, and I recoiled. It wasn't just the smell, although that was certainly a contributing factor. It was the sheer volume of stuff crammed in there, a jumbled tapestry of Tupperware, jars, and cling-wrapped mysteries. The yogurt? Lost somewhere in the Arctic tundra of the back shelf. I swear, I saw a little flag planted on a forgotten jar of pickles, proclaiming it the North Pole. I sighed, a deep, dramatic sigh. This wouldn't do. This simply wouldn't do. Procrastination had reached its limit. The fridge had become a culinary black hole, and I, its reluctant explorer, was about to embark on a perilous expedition. So, I rolled up my sleeves, put on some upbeat music, gotta have the right soundtrack for these epic endeavors, and began the Great Fridge Purge. First, the reconnaissance mission. I carefully pulled out each item, one by one, examining it with the discerning eye of an archaeologist uncovering ancient artifacts. What is this? I muttered, holding up a Tupperware container filled with a substance. It was vaguely orange, with suspicious green flecks. I sniffed it cautiously. Nope. No idea. Into the trash it went. There were the usual suspects, of course. The limp carrots, the sad, lonely celery stalk, the jar of something that might have once been pesto but now resembled a swamp monster. But there were also surprises. A jar of pickled onions I'd completely forgotten about. A container of homemade hummus that, miraculously, still looked, and smelled, edible. And, buried deep beneath a mountain of takeout containers, a lone, perfectly ripe avocado. It was a small victory, but I celebrated it like I'd discovered buried treasure. The shelves, once liberated from their burden of forgotten food, looked bare. Almost sad. You know that feeling? Like when you move furniture and suddenly your room feels strangely empty? It was like that, but with a faint lingering aroma of, well, let's just say it was complex. So, I grabbed my cleaning supplies, armed with a spray bottle of vinegar and water, my secret weapon, a sponge, and a roll of paper towels, and went to work. Scrubbing, wiping, sanitizing. I tackled those sticky spills with the ferocity of a warrior battling a particularly stubborn stain. I even removed the shelves and drawers, washing them in the sink with hot, soapy water. My fridge, I decided, deserved a spa day. As I cleaned, I started to remember the stories behind some of the discarded items. That orange substance? Probably the remains of a butternut squash soup I'd attempted to make a few weeks ago. Ambitious, I know. The sad celery? A noble attempt at healthy snacking that had clearly failed miserably. Each item held a little memory, a little reminder of past culinary adventures and misadventures. It's funny, isn't it, how much our fridges can reveal about us. They're like little time capsules of our eating habits, our aspirations, our laziness. Looking at the empty shelves, I felt a sense of renewal. A blank canvas, ready for a fresh start. No more forgotten leftovers, no more mysterious substances lurking in the back. This time, I was determined to keep it organized, to actually use the fresh produce I bought. I started putting things back in, this time with a system. Fruits and vegetables in the crisper drawers. Yes, I actually used the crisper drawers. Leftovers in clearly labeled containers. Dairy products on the top shelf. Condiments neatly arranged on the door. It was beautiful. A symphony of organization. I almost didn't want to put anything in it, for fear of disrupting the perfect order. But, of course, life goes on. And so does eating. So, I restocked my fridge with fresh groceries, carefully placing each item in its designated spot. I even made a little meal plan for the week, determined to avoid a repeat of the incident. Closing the fridge door, I felt a sense of accomplishment. It was more than just a clean fridge. It was a metaphor for something. A fresh start, a clean slate. A triumph over procrastination. Or maybe I was just reading too much into it. But hey, sometimes cleaning your fridge can be a deeply philosophical experience. You know what I mean? Anyway, the next time you open your fridge, take a moment to appreciate the little ecosystem within. The stories it tells, the memories it holds. And if you happen to stumble upon a container of something vaguely orange with suspicious green flecks, well, you know what to do. Don't ask questions. Just throw it away. Trust me, you don't want to know. So, that's the story of the day I cleaned my fridge. It may not be the most exciting tale, but it's mine. And you know what? I'm kind of proud of it. It's a small victory, perhaps, but a victory nonetheless. Now, who wants tea? I just made a fresh pot. Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain. But remember this. Your commitment today writes your success story tomorrow. Think about it. Each word you learn, each conversation you attempt, it's all adding a new chapter to your journey. And believe me, that story is going to be amazing. Every bit of effort you put in now is building towards fluency, confidence, and a whole new world of opportunities. You've got this. You know what I've found really helpful? Pretending to answer interview questions. I know it sounds a bit random, but honestly, it works. Imagine you're being asked about your strengths, your hobbies, or your dream job, all in English. You can do this while you're cooking dinner, walking the dog, or even just waiting for the bus. It's a fun, easy way to practice speaking without the pressure of a real interview. And it gets you thinking on your feet. Getting confused with different dialects? Oh, I totally get it. One minute you think you've nailed the pronunciation, and the next you hear someone from a different region say the same word completely differently. It can be so frustrating, right? I've been there too, trust me. It's all part of the process, and it just shows you're paying attention to the nuances of the language. Don't let it discourage you. You will not believe what happened next. I was practicing English with a language partner online, and we ended up talking for hours about everything and anything. It felt like magic connecting with someone from a different culture through a shared language. And you know what? It made me think. Have you met anyone interesting while learning English? Maybe a fellow learner, a tutor, or even someone you met while traveling? I'd love to hear your stories. Share them in the comments below. Okay, so, you won't believe what happened to me a few years ago. I still get goosebumps thinking about it. We're talking full body shivers. The kind you get when someone walks over your grave, you know? It all started with a perfectly ordinary invitation. My friend Sarah, bless her adventurous soul, decided we needed a girls' weekend. A proper getaway. Now, Sarah isn't exactly known for her refined taste in accommodations. Rustic charm, she calls it. I call it, potentially haunted. But she'd found this old cabin, deep in the woods, practically off the grid. Miles from civilization. And it was cheap. So, naturally, I agreed. What's the worst that could happen, right? Famous last words. We packed the car, snacks, wine, essential, a truly embarrassing number of cozy blankets, and a single flashlight because, apparently, Sarah believed in embracing the darkness. The drive was an experience. Picture this. Winding roads, thick fog rolling in, trees that looked like gnarled fingers reaching out to grab us. The GPS kept losing signal. It was giving serious horror movie vibes. I was clutching the dashboard, muttering prayers to deities I didn't even know existed. Finally, we arrived. The cabin, well, let's just say Sarah's description of rustic was generous. It was this squat, dark wooden structure, hunched down amongst these looming pines like it was trying to hide. The windows were dusty, the paint was peeling, and the whole place creaked like a coffin lid in a stiff breeze. Charming, I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. Sarah, meanwhile, was bouncing around like a golden retriever on caffeine, already hauling our stuff inside. Inside wasn't much better. Musty air, cobwebs thicker than my grandma's knitting, and this unsettling quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like it's listening to you. There was a fireplace, which was a plus, but the furniture looked like it had been salvaged from a Victorian funeral parlor. You know, the kind with the dark velvet and the carved skulls? Okay, maybe no skulls, but you get the picture. We spent the first few hours trying to make the place feel habitable. We lit a fire, unpacked our things, and tried to ignore the weird scratching noises coming from the attic. Probably squirrels, Sarah said, a little too quickly. I nodded, but I was already clutching my wineglass like a life preserver. As darkness fell, the atmosphere got thicker. The wind picked up, howling through the trees like a banshee choir. The shadows in the corners of the cabin seemed to deepen, stretching and shifting like restless spirits. We were playing cards by the firelight, canasta, I think, and I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see something lurking just outside the flickering light. Then, the power went out. Just poof. Darkness. Complete and utter darkness. Sarah yelped, dropping her cards. I swear my heart leapt into my throat. Relax, she said, fumbling for her phone. I have a flashlight app. The tiny, bluish light from her phone did little to dispel the oppressive darkness. It just made the shadows seem more menacing. We decided to call it a night. The attic noises had intensified, and now we could hear distinct footsteps directly above us. "Definitely squirrels," Sarah muttered, her voice a little shaky. I wasn't convinced. We huddled together in the only bedroom, the single flashlight casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. Every creak of the cabin, every rustle of the wind, sent shivers down my spine. Then, we heard it. A low, guttural growl coming from just outside the bedroom door. It wasn't a squirrel. It wasn't anything I'd ever heard before. It was deep, primal, and terrifying. Sarah and I froze, clinging to each other, barely daring to breathe. The growl came again, closer this time. Something was scratching at the door. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I squeezed my eyes shut, convinced this was it, the end of my story. I was picturing headlines. 2 women devoured by mysterious cabin beast. My life flashed before my eyes. It was surprisingly uneventful. Suddenly, the scratching stopped. The growling faded. Silence. A thick, heavy silence that was almost worse than the noise. We lay there, petrified, for what felt like hours. Finally, the first rays of dawn crept through the grimy windows. Trembling, we slowly opened the bedroom door. Guess what we found? A stray dog. A big, scruffy, mud-caked mutt, sitting patiently outside the door, wagging its tail. Apparently, it had been sheltering under the cabin porch and had gotten hungry. The growling? Its stomach. The scratching? It wanted in. Can you believe it? All that terror, all that fear, for a dog. We were so relieved, so exhausted, and so utterly embarrassed. We laughed, we cried, we hugged the dog. We named him Rusty, and he became our honorary third wheel for the rest of the weekend. The attic noises? Turns out it was squirrels. The power outage? A blown fuse. The creepy atmosphere? Well, that was just the cabin being old and creepy. But that night, that terrifying night, will forever be etched in my memory. It taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the scariest monsters are just hungry dogs. And sometimes, your imagination can be your worst enemy. You know what I mean? It's funny now, looking back, but at the time, oh boy. Let's just say I'm sticking to hotels from now on. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you have these moments in your life that just stick with you? Like, they become a part of your personal tapestry? Well, my first music festival is definitely one of those moments. It's kind of etched into my memory, all vibrant colors and echoing bass lines. I gotta tell you, it was a total roller coaster. Are you ready for this? Grab your metaphorical tea, because this is a good one. It was the summer after I graduated high school. Remember that feeling, that kind of boundless freedom mixed with a touch of, what am I going to do with my life? Yeah, that was me. My best friend, Sarah, bless her heart, somehow convinced her parents to let us go to Rocktopia, this 3-day camping music festival a few hours away. I'd never been to anything like it. My musical experience up to that point consisted of school band concerts and the occasional local gig. This was different. Another level. We packed everything we thought we'd need. Tent, sleeping bags, snacks. So many snacks. We were convinced we'd starve. Sunscreen. Crucial. And the most outrageous, glitter-infused outfits we could put together. Looking back, we were definitely trying a bit too hard, but hey, it was Rocktopia. We had to make a statement, right? The drive itself was an adventure. Sarah's ancient Corolla, affectionately nicknamed the Beast, coughed and sputtered its way there, the windows down, blasting a curated playlist of bands we were hoping to see. The anticipation was thick in the air, you know? Like that electric hum before a thunderstorm. When we finally arrived, the scale of the thing just hit me. Whoa. It was massive. A sprawling city of tents, stages, food stalls, and people. So many people. Every kind of person you could imagine, united by this shared love of music. It was a little overwhelming, I'll admit. We stumbled out of the Beast, blinking in the afternoon sun, looking like two deer caught in headlights. Finding a spot to pitch our tent was a mission in itself. We finally squeezed it in between a group of seasoned festival goers who looked like they'd been living there for weeks and a couple who were clearly on a different wavelength altogether. Let's just say their tent looked suspiciously small for two people. Wink. Once we were somewhat settled, keyword, somewhat. Our tent was more like a leaning tower of fabric. We ventured out to explore. The air was alive with music. Different stages pulsed with different rhythms. Everything from mellow acoustic sets to full-on headbanging metal. The smell of food hung heavy in the air, a delicious mix of smoky barbecue, greasy fries, and something vaguely floral that I couldn't quite place. It was sensory overload in the best possible way. Our first show was this indie band called The Wandering Souls. They were incredible. The lead singer had this mesmerizing voice that seemed to float over the crowd. I remember standing there, surrounded by all these strangers, feeling this incredible sense of connection. Like we were all part of something bigger than ourselves. It's hard to explain, but it was magical. The next 2 days were a blur of music, dancing, and, well, let's just say discovering the limits of our physical endurance. We saw bands we'd never heard of and fell instantly in love with. We danced until our legs ached and sang along to lyrics we barely knew. We ate questionable noodles from a food truck at 3 a.m. and discovered the joys of festival fashion. Think flower crowns, glitter, and a lot of denim. Of course, there were mishaps. Like the time Sarah tripped over a tent rope and landed face first in a pile of something. We're still not entirely sure what it was. Or the time I mistook a porta potty for a regular bathroom. Don't even ask. Let's just say it was a learning experience. A smelly learning experience. But even the mishaps became part of the adventure. We laughed, we cried, mostly from laughing. We made friends with strangers who felt like family by the end of the weekend. We even learned how to properly assemble a camping stove, after setting off the fire alarm in the campsite. Oops. One of the most memorable moments, though, was seeing our favorite band headline the final night. Crimson Sky. We'd been obsessed with them for years. Standing there, under the vast night sky, lit by the stage lights, listening to them play our song. It was surreal. I remember looking at Sarah, her face lit up with pure joy, and thinking, this is what life is all about. You know those moments when you feel so incredibly alive, so present in the moment, that you just want to bottle it up and keep it forever? That was one of those moments. The last day was bittersweet. Packing up our tent, now covered in a layer of dust and who knows what else, felt like saying goodbye to a dream. We were exhausted, sunburnt, and slightly smelly, but we were also buzzing with this incredible energy. The car ride home was quiet. We were both lost in our own thoughts, replaying the highlights in our minds. The beast, bless its rusty heart, somehow managed to make it back in one piece. Looking back, that first music festival was more than just a weekend of music. It was a rite of passage. A moment of pure, unadulterated joy. It taught me the power of music, the beauty of community, and the importance of embracing the unexpected. It was a reminder that life is meant to be lived, danced, and sung. At the top of your lungs, surrounded by people who share your passion. So, yeah, that's the story of my first music festival. It was messy, chaotic, and absolutely unforgettable. It's a story I love to tell, a memory I cherish. And you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. Now, tell me, have you ever been to a music festival? What was your experience like? I'd love to hear all about it. Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But remember, every step, no matter how small, takes you closer to the peak. Speaking imperfectly is still better than staying silent. Think about it. Every time you speak, even if it's just a few words, you're exercising your language muscles. You're building confidence, and you're getting more comfortable with the sounds and rhythms of English. Mistakes are just proof that you're trying, so embrace them. And you know what? I've found a fun and easy way to practice speaking every day. Reciting motivational quotes aloud. You can do it while you're cooking, walking the dog, or even just waiting for the bus. Honestly, it feels like magic. Pick a quote that resonates with you and say it out loud, focusing on your pronunciation and intonation. It's a simple exercise, but it can make a huge difference. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? I get it. Worrying about your voice tone and clarity is completely normal. We all want to sound confident and fluent. You might think about how your voice sounds, if others can understand you clearly, and if you're speaking at the right speed. These are all valid concerns, and it's okay to feel that way. But remember, progress, not perfection, is the key. You will not believe what happened next. I was talking to a friend the other day about learning new things, and we were sharing how good it feels to finally grasp a concept or master a skill, no matter how small. It got me thinking, how do you celebrate your small wins in English learning? Maybe it's treating yourself to your favorite snack after a successful conversation or simply acknowledging your progress in a journal. I'd love to hear your stories. Share your celebrations in the comments below. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you just need to get away? Like, truly, deeply away? That's how I was feeling a few summers ago. Work had been, well, let's just say it had been work. My apartment felt smaller than usual, and the city noise, which I normally find comforting, was starting to grate on my nerves. So, I decided, on a whim, really, to go canoeing. Now, here's the funny part. I'd never been canoeing before in my life. I'd seen it in movies, those serene scenes of people gliding across glassy lakes, and it always looked so peaceful. So, naturally, I figured, how hard could it be? Famous last words, right? I booked a little cabin by a lake up north, somewhere I'd never been before. The drive itself was an adventure. Rolling hills, fields of sunflowers bursting with sunshine, little antique shops blinking in the drowsy heat. It was all so charmingly different from my usual concrete jungle. The cabin was exactly what I needed, rustic, cozy, with a big screened-in porch overlooking the lake. The air smelled of pine needles and damp earth, a fragrance that just soaked into me, calming me instantly. And the lake? Oh, the lake. It was like a sheet of shimmering turquoise, ringed by trees that dipped their branches into the water like shy dancers. The next morning, bright and early, or, at least, as early as I ever get on vacation, I headed down to the dock where they rented canoes. The guy handing them out, a grizzled old fellow with a mischievous twinkle in his eye, gave me a quick rundown on the basics. Paddle on this side, the canoe goes that way, he explained. Paddle on both sides together, you go straight. Don't fall in. Simple enough, right? I pushed the canoe out into the water, feeling a little wobble. Okay. A lot of wobble, and climbed in. And that, my friend, is when the real adventure began. The first few minutes were chaotic. Let's just say my initial attempts at paddling resembled something closer to a frantic windmill impression than a smooth, controlled stroke. The canoe zigged when I wanted it to zag, spun in slow, dizzying circles, and generally refused to cooperate. I'm pretty sure the grizzled guy back on the dock was having a good chuckle at my expense. But slowly, miraculously, I started to get the hang of it. The paddling became less frantic, the canoe a little more obedient. I started to find a rhythm, dipping my paddle into the cool, clear water, feeling the resistance, the gentle push against the current. And then, it happened. The chaos subsided, the wobbles calmed, and I glided. Truly, honestly glided. The canoe cut through the water with a soft whisper, leaving a rippling wake behind me. The sun warmed my face, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves overhead, and the lake spread out around me, vast and serene. I paddled out to the middle of the lake, far enough from the shore that I felt completely enveloped by the water and sky. The only sounds were the dipping of my paddle, the occasional splash of a fish jumping, and the distant call of a loon. It was magical. I spent hours out there that day, just drifting, exploring. I discovered hidden coves, watched dragonflies dance over the water, and even saw a bald eagle soar overhead, its majestic wings catching the sunlight. It was like being in a different world, a world where deadlines and emails didn't exist, where the only thing that mattered was the gentle sway of the canoe and the quiet beauty surrounding me. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. At one point, I got a little too close to the reeds at the edge of the lake and discovered, rather abruptly, that they were home to a family of very vocal ducks. Let's just say they weren't thrilled to see me and let me know it in no uncertain terms. I backpaddled away rather hastily, feeling like I'd just intruded on a very important duck conference. And then there was the incident with the lily pads. They looked so peaceful, so inviting, floating there on the surface of the water. I thought it would be lovely to paddle through them, like something out of a Monet painting. What I didn't realize was just how dense they could be. My canoe got completely tangled, and I spent a good 10 minutes trying to extricate myself, feeling like a very clumsy water beetle. But even those little mishaps just added to the adventure. They were reminders that even in the midst of serenity, there's always room for a little bit of chaos, a little bit of unexpected fun. As the afternoon wore on, the sun started to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. I turned the canoe back towards the cabin, feeling a deep sense of peace I hadn't realized I was missing. My arms were a little sore, my face was sun-kissed, and I had a story about a duck conference to tell. Back at the dock, the grizzled old guy gave me a knowing nod as I hauled the canoe ashore. "Not bad for a first-timer," he said, that twinkle still in his eye. "Come back anytime. And you know what? I think I will. Because that day on the lake, fumbling with the paddle and dodging angry ducks, was more than just a canoe trip. It was a reminder to slow down, to breathe, to appreciate the simple things. It was a reminder that sometimes, the best adventures are the ones you least expect." So, yeah, canoeing. Who knew it could be so transformative? You know what I mean? It's like, you think you're just going for a paddle, but you end up paddling into a whole new perspective. It's definitely something I'd recommend. Just, watch out for the ducks. And the lily pads. They're trickier than they look. Settling into an imaginary armchair, pulling an invisible blanket over my lap. So, you want to hear a story about baking, huh? It's funny, isn't it? How something as simple as a cake can hold so much weight. I mean, we're talking flour, sugar, eggs, basic stuff. But sometimes, the simplest things become these monumental tasks, these symbols of, well, you'll see. This particular baking saga revolves around my mom's birthday. She's always been my rock, strong, resilient, always there with a warm hug and a pot of something delicious simmering on the stove. So, naturally, I wanted to do something special for her. Something more than just a card or a bouquet. I wanted to bake her a cake. The problem? I'd never baked anything more complicated than boxed brownies. Seriously. My kitchen experience mostly revolved around burning toast and microwaving popcorn. But, love makes you do crazy things, right? Like attempting a 3-tiered chocolate masterpiece with zero baking experience. Ambitious? Maybe a little. Insane? Possibly. I started with a cookbook. One of those thick, intimidating tomes filled with glossy photos of impossibly perfect desserts. Flipping through the pages, I felt a wave of inadequacy, I guess. All those technical terms, ganache, chiffon, bain-marie, it was like a foreign language. I mean, what even is a bain-marie? Slight chuckle. I eventually settled on a recipe that looked manageable. A simple chocolate cake with buttercream frosting. Easy peasy, right? Famous last words. My first hurdle was the grocery shopping. Standing in the baking aisle, surrounded by 50 different types of flour, I felt completely lost. Cake flour, all-purpose flour, self-rising flour. It was overwhelming. I ended up grabbing a bag of something that looked vaguely flour-like and hoped for the best. You know that feeling, right? That, fake it till you make it, panic? Back in my tiny kitchen, armed with my questionable flour and a healthy dose of blind optimism, I began. The recipe instructions seemed straightforward enough, but somehow, things started to go sideways almost immediately. First, I cracked an egg directly into the dry ingredients, forgetting to whisk it separately. Cue the frantic Googling. Can you save a cake batter with a raw egg in it? The internet, bless its heart, assured me it was salvageable. Small victory. Next, I completely misread the measurements for the baking soda. Instead of a teaspoon, I added a tablespoon. Now, I don't know if you've ever made this mistake, but let me tell you, it's significant. The batter started fizzing like a science experiment gone wrong. It looked alive, pulsating, bubbling ominously. I swear, I half expected it to start climbing out of the bowl. At this point, I was covered in flour, chocolate smudges decorated my face, and my kitchen looked like a tiny hurricane had swept through it. I was about ready to throw in the towel, order a pizza, and call it a day. But then I thought about my mom. Her kind smile, her unwavering support. I couldn't give up. Taking a deep breath, I scraped the volcanic batter into a pan, or what was left of it, shoved it into the oven, and prayed. The next 30 minutes were agonizing. I paced, I chewed my nails. I peeked through the oven door every 5 seconds, convinced I was about to witness a baking apocalypse. Finally, the timer dinged. Hesitantly, I pulled out the cake. It wasn't pretty. It was lopsided, and cracked, and significantly browner than the picture in the cookbook. But it was a cake. A real, honest-to-goodness cake. And it smelled heavenly. The frosting was another adventure entirely. My initial attempt resembled something closer to cement than buttercream. It was so thick, I could have used it to patch a hole in the wall. After another round of frantic Googling and a desperate plea to the baking gods, I managed to salvage it with a generous amount of milk and some serious elbow grease. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the cake was frosted, albeit somewhat unevenly. It wasn't perfect, not even close. But it was mine, made with love, sweat, and a whole lot of flour. Presenting it to my mom was nerve-wracking. I held my breath as she sliced into the lopsided creation. And then, she smiled. A genuine, heartfelt smile that reached her eyes. She took a bite, and her eyes widened. "This is delicious," she declared, and I swear, in that moment, I felt like I'd conquered Mount Everest. It wasn't about the perfect cake, it was about the effort, the love, the sheer determination poured into that slightly burnt, slightly lopsided, perfectly imperfect creation. Later, after the candles were blown out and the last slice of cake was devoured, my mom pulled me aside. "Thank you," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "It's the best cake I've ever had." And you know what? I believed her. Not because it was technically the best, but because it was made with love. So, that's my baking story. A story of burnt fingers, flour explosions, and a whole lot of learning. It taught me that sometimes, it's not about the perfect outcome, but the journey. It's about the messy, imperfect, beautifully human process of creating something from nothing. And sometimes, the most lopsided, cracked cakes taste the sweetest. You know what I mean? Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching and for staying connected with me throughout this video. I really appreciate you spending your time here. You know, before we go, I was just thinking about how lovely it is to plan little moments of joy into our days. It made me wonder, what's your next simple joy plan? Like a walk, a coffee, or a sunset watch? It's always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans in the comments is a great way to practice expressing yourself in English. 2. It would be wonderful if you would follow, like, subscribe, and share this video so we can stay connected and you can keep up with new daily content focused on English speaking and listening. See you tomorrow, and remember to take good care of yourselves and keep practicing.